We have Zeke Herba. Welcome, Zeke. It's so good to see you. Um, is a rising high school student with a talent for performing arts, music, and sharing his experiences. Zeke and his story were featured in a Boston NBC TV news story about CVI. He's joined on stage by his incredible mother, Zuleida. Just got to shout out the moms.
Hi, my name is Ezekiel Franklin Herba. I moved to Perkins School for the Blind in kindergarten because back in my home state of Florida, they didn't have the resources to handle kids like me who have CVI. I am so glad to be here with you today. I started Perkins around 2017. I went to Keith Elementary in Florida for half a year before going back in the middle of the year. By the time I was in first grade, I had settled, but in March of 2020, COVID happened and I had to take Zoom meetings. It was pretty fine from what I remember, and a year later, I went back to my elementary school. But by then, it was my last year, so I eventually took middle school. It was hard, but eventually, middle school was as easy as elementary school, and as of now, it's my last week in lower school. I wouldn't say that my time in school was all sunshine and roses, but I'm on the best path for my situation, even if it's not the best I wanted. If I had stayed in Keith Elementary, I would have been an outcast unequitable for this school system. That's what I would have thought. Still, this speech intends to bring light about my situation while still being genuine about the school. I know that many people have contributed to where I am today, but even still, I face some inconveniences. Not all of them can be attributed to my CVI. There are some days where we celebrate a certain event, and that moves me forward. Other days, there might be only one thing that happens on a given day, and the rest is average. Some days, some days are just average, and there are some days where everything goes to plan, but seem like they're stacked against me. And on some rare occasions, I might even fail. But it's not the end of the world, and fortunately, I'm at the point where if I ever face a worst case scenario at school, I'm usually fine by the second day. I've improved so much from disrespecting like other people with disabilities, and I know that okay. Sorry, something is the way. I'm usually worst case scenario at school. I'm usually fine by the second day. I've improved so much from the disrespect of other people, and I know that it's a necessary burden I have to take when going to school. It's hard when you've been through 9 years in the same building, despite everything going well, even in situations where nothing goes, even in situations where nothing goes your way. Even wait, when you've been only at Perkins for several years, you still have a lot of new things to go through. But eventually, when you've been here more years like me, everything starts to feel the same to no end. And I'm not saying it's any one person's fault to fix. After all, Sue, my math teacher, can't give me unbirthdays every day with cake and all because that's not her job. I will say that she does a lot of extra work to make the students feel welcome, but it's not on their job list to do that. They're generally a teacher's job in America is only to teach via the material from their books and to tell the students what to do. But I think Perkins does something extra in that they give you the tools for how to live in the world, no matter the educational value they give. From what I can look back on in my many years, is that the more disabled you are, the more prepared you are. And I don't think that comes from the learning itself, though maybe the act of learning a certain subject does something, but I think the real preparation comes from using things like assistive technology or wheelchairs and talkers to get around. That can provide a safe landing pad for graduates on their last year. The teachers at Perkins are meant to do more than just teach, though. There are some teachers I've had and I've seen other students have that aren't the best to be around, but even that, they still try. Even though I've been through a lot to get to this point, I genuinely don't want to stand as some golden child. I honestly want a clean slate for myself when I graduate. I don't want to be known as like the kid that went to Perkins. I just want to start a new life, and Perkins and everything I've been through are really just preparation. What really matters are the things I give out or create. I'm still a human being, and I don't want to be treated like some deity. Just because I've gone to Perkins doesn't mean I like the school. It just means I found my place. Like I said, like I said, I've been through a lot of crap before. Even if you come from a clean background, you still have to deal with the same amount of problems as any other person. Whether you're a child going to the dentist, or a rich person trying to start up a company, or even when you're learning to walk. I was diagnosed with CVI, or cortical visual impairment, like all these other guys. Yeah. It's a condition where even if the eyes are perfectly healthy, or at least functional, the brain doesn't retrieve that information properly. When you Google CVI, the part that gets the most attention is the more severe case where you have to rely on color, or half your visual field isn't taken. I saw a video of a person with CVI, and to him, he couldn't see where he was. At first, you might question if I have CVI. I can still recognize faces, even non human ones. I can see an object fine. I can see colors fine. I can see shapes fine. But even processing them in 3D space, I can even visualize lighting. But think of your blind spot. Your brain just fills in the empty space with an educated guess of what's behind. Your peripheral vision is actually grayscale, and only 1 degree of your vision is dedicated to color. And that's on a normal sighted person. Even if my vision is treated with glasses to make it a little more clear, there are still things I never see because my brain thought they weren't there to begin with. It's like some objects have the power to turn invisible, even when they're right in front of me because my brain didn't expect them to be there. S- Be there. In fact, when I was watching episode 3 of the Amazing Digital Circus, which is basically a show about this girl named Pomni who goes goes with like 5 other members and and gets tormented by an AI named Gain. It's an indie series. Eh, on like Monday, I suddenly noticed that while Kane said in the therapy session that my mind is a beeswax polished coconut, I thought he made a brain appear. Before I noticed, I thought he was making a gesture. I genuinely thought he was just making a gesture like, my mind is just a beeswax polished coconut, like no abilities. And I've seen that episode several times by now. I could chalk it up as a weird quirk in my vision if it hadn't affected my life in some real way. But sometimes I can't even find the remote in the bed or notice people walking by. It's like my brain skims through everything and does a bunch of guesswork. Sometimes my brain can't process smaller text because it's hard. It takes a little effort to read text from a book, but I can read it comfortably. Most of the time, though, that guesswork is mostly right, but it isn't perfect. Another thing I have is that I don't have lenses. When I was half a year old, my lenses were taken out. Up until that point, my lenses were foggy, and if I hadn't took the surgery, my cones wouldn't have had enough stimulation, and I would have been completely blind. So I'm almost immune to my vision yellowing as I get older. But it comes at a cost. I have to take eye drops twice per day in order to maintain my vision because my lenses provide a place for the pressure in my eye to go. If I didn't, then the pressure goes uncontrolled and I could develop glaucoma. On an adjacent note, I've noticed that every time I've not had eye drops for at least like 6 to 8 hours, my right eye starts to fog up, and I could develop a rainbow halo around lights. I have also seen that screen time can kind of worsen the situation. I also had hyperlexia, which is a condition where reading occurs at an early age. I started to read at 15 to 16 months old, though there were certain things I didn't know about. For one, I didn't know how like he and she were supposed to be used, like third person pronouns were supposed to be used. I thought that he and she were just synonyms and that they were interchangeable, and that you just pick the word that you were comfortable with. So I could say something like, John went to the store. She went to go grab some avocados. Then he went to go get some cereal. She got some pizza. She got grapes. Another time was when I mispronounced the word enough, pronouncing it with a TH sound. TH sound. The F and TH are kind of not that different if you think about it. Sometimes I would pronounce my silent E's with an sound as I would pronounce aura with R instead of dropping the E in writing because reading and writing is more innate than speaking and listening. Fortunately, I was lazy enough to drop it. I also sometimes use closed captioning when I watch a film in order to understand the words a little better. I can spell most things with ease. With all that said, I don't really think it affects my life as much as people think. Sure, I may have some inconveniences, but I can still go through a day similar to a sighted person, and I can watch media without audio description. To me, my condition is pretty much part of who I am. I could go through an advanced program like Blender to work on stuff, but to me, I only have one point of reference for how I see the world, and it's not different enough or severe enough that it can hinder any opportunity I face. For the most part, I don't feel like I'm blind, but there are a lot more things I need to work on in order to become a person in the real world. You don't have to see black to be blind, but I'd say I have about 75 to 85% worth of visual content compared to an able-sighted person. And for me, that's enough. Not every day is a candy row for me, but it's also not an everyday challenge. And I think it's true of people across the spectrum of blindness, deafness, and people who may be mute. I can't go into the brain of a sighted person and tell from that how good my vision is. I've only remembered how I see through the world, and I don't complain. Bees can see ultraviolet, but we don't consider ourselves colorblind, so I'm comfortable with the way I, so if we can tolerate that, then I can tolerate my blindness. I've faced some minor adversities, but overall, my vision's sufficient, and I don't feel like changing it. I want to thank all the people who helped make this conference possible. It allows me to speak my genuine thoughts on what it's like with cortical visual impairment to all the people who are specialized in the discipline. I'd also like to thank all the teachers, doctors, and people who work with kids like me who have CVI. You are making an active difference in the world. That's the end of my speech.
Oh, wow. Finally.
Center lived experience. Listen, collaborate, take action. This is the collective power of us. When we come together as a CVI community and harness the collective power of us, we can make real change and improve outcomes for all with CVI. Learn more at cvinow.org.